Welcome back to Big Fellas. How you doing, Darren? You all right, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. How are you? Good weekend?
Yeah, not too bad.
You went go to the football, mate? Big match?
I did, yes. For those that are listening, I'm a Norwich fan. Darren's a Liverpool fan. But we both shamelessly jumped on the bandwagon as Peterborough won the Virtue Trophy. Yeah, cracking weekend.
Wembley visit with the kids, absolutely immense. Also, our now official partner, Peterborough United. So great to see them win. Mark, you say like shamelessly, like Liverpool is obviously my team, but I do love Peterborough, and we go 7, 8, 9 times a year, to be fair. So it was really good seeing them win, and we're the first team to retain the trophy. I know a lot of people are thinking it's a bit of a Mickey Mouse trophy, but do you know what, mate? Day out of Wembley, winning.
Well, it is a Mickey Mouse trophy, but yeah, it's a day out at Wembley and great time in that. So, so what we got on this week then, mate?
All right, we got Volker and David from Man Up, Man Down podcast. Mate, I've been really looking forward to this one. Mark, I'll let you... In fact, no. Volker and David, welcome. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, good. So I was just about to say to Mark, just tell us a little bit more about the Man Up, Man Down. And I thought, do you know what? I'll let you talk about your podcast. So let's start there. So tell us a bit more about the podcast, guys.
You start, because, you know, you're more in the football spirit as well than me.
Well, you know, I don't really want to talk too much about the football, but all I can say is that Colchester United are tapping on the door of the playoffs. An incredibly dramatic match on Saturday where I think basically Grimsby were winning 2-0. We were drawing 0-0, and it would have left us four and we scored like 2 goals in the last 5 minutes, and Grimsby conceded 2 goals in the last 5 minutes. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for that, Volker.
You know, I have no idea what's happening in football, but, you know, I had a good weekend too. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry, mate. How was your weekend? Let's talk about that.
No, let's talk about Men Up, Men Down.
Yeah, go on then.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've been going a few years now too. Well, I don't know. I've lost track. We're working. We're about to publish. We're getting near publishing our 100th episode. We're like preparing for season 4. I mean, basically, me and Volker met on a work project between lockdowns, and just sort of started talking about our experiences of lockdown, the fact that we had children of similar ages who, you know, sort of slowly growing up. I mean, I think, you know, they're all teenagers now, or, you know, and it's just very different challenges to when they're toddlers. And throw on top of that sort of parents getting older and getting infirm, and sort of you almost have to take on a parent role with them. Throw in, well, you know, as I say, lockdown, and now everything that's going on in the world, you know, it's. I guess we felt that men don't get a space to speak, and, you know, if we're talking about these things on the podcast, hopefully that will encourage other men too. Would you say that's a decent summary, Volker?
Yeah, so we started talking about all things middle age, right? From midlife crisis, if there is a crisis. So there could be a whole discussion point there. You know, the sports car I used to own when we started the podcast, which I no longer have. The tattoos I got during lockdown, right? So I started in 2020 with a small tattoo on my right arm, and I'm now fully covered. Teenage parents, pets, we both had a dog at the time. And we talk a lot about men's mental health, right? Because the average age of men taking their own life in the UK is around 42, right? Which is midlife. So the more men we get to talk about topics we talk about, the better it is, right? From erectile dysfunction, which some of us might have problems with, to sex in middle age, testosterone, a lot on testosterone recently. It's getting very popular. We take on any topic, really.
Oh, fantastic. And of course, we are here as big fellas talking about men's weight loss. And so I guess that is an issue that affects men in middle age. And I guess from my own experience, I've struggled with weight all my life, but as in my younger years, it always seemed that little bit easier to just shake off. And as you get that bit older, the challenges are harder, and it maybe doesn't come off quite so quick. And I don't know, maybe fall off the wagon that bit quicker. I've actually well and truly fell off the wagon this week, as it happens, and Darren and I are going to have an episode about that shortly after this. But yeah, let's talk about your experiences. Have either of you ever had to struggle with your weight, and sort of what did that look like?
Do you want to go first, Volker?
I can go first. My story is probably shorter. I don't know, or not. I piled on a lot of weight at uni, but you know that, you know, you're young, right? So you just get a bit more disciplined, drink a little bit less, eat a little bit better, and you shake it off. And then about 10 years ago now, I lost about 10 kilos. So just short of 2 stones for all these people that still measure in stones, right? And again, it's discipline, right? But now, I try to lose weight now for about 2 years, and I mean, is this video recorded? I should have asked before or not. This okay.
Yes.
So you only see the top bit, right? So that's good. I can hide my belly on the. But shaking off a belly in middle age, it's a nightmare. I'm going to the gym 6 days a week, right?
Yeah.
But then we're sitting all day. I snack a lot. I like my snacks. A bit of chocolate and chocolate coated peanuts, Easter bunnies, right? We talked about that before we went live. Yeah. That just piles it on, right? So it's a good thing is I staying constant, right? I'm not losing.
Well, that's a win in a way, isn't it? Just sort of maintaining your weight, and that's something that I've struggled with even since losing the weight. Is something just to sort of try and stay at a level. I just find myself like I'll shoot up or drop down, and I just never seem to be able to just stay consistent.
Yeah, I'd like to lose another stone or so. It would be good. Yeah. I'm also realistic. We're all getting older, right?
Yeah, I need a bit of cushion, I guess. How about you, David?
Yeah, I mean, battle with my weight all my life, but I've always kept fit. And I think, that's sort of always been the frustrating thing. I mean, I've done like ultra marathons, triathlons, 10K swims. I guess it's that thing that when I'm training hard, like naturally the weight comes off. But then as soon as you stop, still kind of eating how you were when you're, burning off 1,000 calories every weekend. And it comes back on. And as you say, then you get to a point you're like, actually, sort of 5-10 years ago, I could cut out cheese and mayonnaise and not eat bread a couple of times a week. And you sort of see the benefits. And I mean, I'd say like lockdown, I put on loads of weight over lockdown and, sort of got to a point where I was struggling there. Joined Man v Fat Football, which I know you guys are well briefed on, and playing football for them. Badly broke my ankle. Then I was out for couldn't walk for months basically. So piled on loads of weight then, and sort of over the lot. I guess I had a massive mindset change there, where I'm like, right, I never want to be in this position again. Not. I mean, I guess I guess it was like, right, when I'm recovered, I'm never going to use that excuse of I can't be bothered, because I know what it's like not to be able to do stuff.
Yeah.
So that was literally about a year ago, and since then I've dropped a good couple of stone. I've used Mount Jaro for that, and partly because it's like I feel like I'm doing the right things, but not seeing the benefit. I think kind of that, obviously, that has a physical effect, but mentally it's like, well, if I'm spending money on this, then, I want to get the maximum out of it. So
the skin of the game then, isn't there?
Yeah. And, and it's interesting that I'm not exercising in the same way as, as training for endurance events. I'm still, I guess I'm doing more weights, but it's sort of interesting, and I guess that's the thing that has been a big realization for me, that training for endurance events is about training for endurance events, whereas training to lose weight is to lose weight. So they are two very different things.
Yeah, very much so.
I think you got to be. So my wife she hasn't done one for probably about a year and a half now, but she does a lot of triathlons and stuff. So I think she did the half Ironman. That was the big one she was training for a while ago. And it's really interesting because when she stopped training for that, she then joined like a CrossFit style gym. So like you say, far more weights based. And obviously then you do put on a bit more weight because you're not running, burning and sort of slimming down, I suppose. But then all of a sudden you're trying to build muscle, and that obviously it's really interesting. So one of the things that actually the Dr. Lisa spoke about with us was getting some smart scales, and that's been really interesting as you transition from, like you say, endurance based into strength training. Really good. I think it's brilliant because our podcasts, there's so much alignment there, although they're slightly different in the sense of yours is for middle age, ours is for weight loss. I think there's so much.
I thought you were going to say for young people.
I think there's so much that connects us, and the testosterone thing is something that I get targeted all the time with on Facebook ads.
Yeah.
And
I'm 40.
I'm 41, so yeah, I'm assuming I've hit that age bracket where they're like, yeah, but I don't understand any of it. What have you? I'm really curious to know what you've learned about testosterone.
Good question. I mean, to be honest, I don't know if I understand it at all, right? But I think testosterone is just, David, you probably understand better than me, but it's just an important hormone for sex drive, for mental health. They link it to mental health now, right? If I understand it correctly. So they David has to get up and get the lights on. Is that what you have to do? Actually? There's a difference between the free testosterone and the bound testosterone, and basically, if the levels are low, you're at higher risk to suicide. In terms of sexual performance, I believe as well, and sex drive. But if you go to the gym 6 times a week, your testosterone levels should be up. Mine are up. So we actually did a live test. We did the test and then a live analysis with a GP. But yeah, is that basically it, David? You probably know a little bit more. You start to research these things at far more depth than
Yeah, I mean, I got double F in GCSE science, so not really my strong suit. But
you did the Newman panel as well, right?
I know exactly. I mean, I guess the thing that, and I guess this isn't sort of specific to testosterone, but perhaps to men's health in general. It's sort of understand. I guess the thing that I found interesting is that it's all so circular, in that low testosterone can affect your sleep and affect your ability to build muscle and affect your energy levels, which, and as a result, your mental health. Whereas if you're going to the gym, you build muscle, and building muscle promotes testosterone, which helps you sleep. And, if you're sleeping better, you're producing more testosterone. It's, as I say, it's very circular in that, you need testosterone to build the muscle, but you need to be building muscle to create the testosterone. So and I think sort of in terms of the supplements or, getting testosterone.
TRT, isn't it? Testosterone
replacement. Yeah, getting replacement therapy. I mean, and I guess we've sort of spoken to the whole gambit of people that are advocates of, well, you can do it through diet and exercise. And sorry, that's a bit that I missed out as well, is that, processed food, obviously we know that processed food's not great for weight gain, but, you sort of, that has an impact on testosterone. And plastics, in the environment, and that are seeping into the food chain. It's one of those ones that when you start to dig down into it,
go down a real rabbit hole, can't you?
Yeah.
And I suppose it's like anything, isn't it? Like from what you're saying, it's like diet and exercise. It's a holistic thing. We had Rob Dunn on the other week, and he was saying like his approach has to be holistic, because like you say, if you're not sleeping very well, it's really hard to diet well. And if you're not sleeping and dieting well, then actually how are you ever going to motivate yourself to get down the gym and exercise? And it's a vicious circle, or it's a good circle when it's all working.
But I think what they're pretty much saying now is if you have good testosterone, then you're doing something right? So it's a great indicator to say, oh, there's something wrong or not. Does that make sense? And if you look at people like, Jeff Bezos, who allegedly, I don't think it's proven, or he hasn't admitted it, but he put on a lot of muscle, at his tender age of, I don't know how old he is. He must be 60 odd, right? So most likely he had, testosterone replacement therapy, right? So, I think it's a good thing, but I don't know, I don't think everyone needs it. And I don't remember who it was on the podcast who said this is advisable to check it once a year, once every 2 years, once you get to a certain age. So, or if you feel low all the time, right? Or if you, can't perform as much as you used to, right? It might be worthwhile checking your testosterone before. Because one of, I think it was Ross who was on the podcast, David, correct me. He said pretty much he had lots of issues, he thought he was depressed. He thought, there was something wrong with him, whatever. And he went from one doctor to another until someone says, oh, very simple, this is testosterone, right? So he did a test, no testosterone, got testosterone replacement therapy, and off he went. Yeah. So it's just something, I think, as we approach middle age, it's something to look out for. And I guess something our parents wouldn't have not looked out for, because I think it was less known, right? I don't remember my dad ever talking about testosterone levels, right?
No. And how would you go about sort of checking your testosterone? Is it sort of, you book an appointment with your doctor, or is there a way of sort of
You just go, I think your doctor, probably your GP can do it. Easiest way is just go online, find a testosterone test. Cost you 30 quid, I think. The cheapest one. And they send you out a little test kit that you put on your arm, and if it works, like for me, it worked. Although it took ages. You get enough blood, and then you just send it off and get a PDF afterwards. Other people have to go to a nurse to get it done.
Yeah, no, I'm not great with blood. I put it, and it said, it takes 5 minutes, and I'd put it on. And, and I'm like, doesn't seem to be filling up. And then sort of took it off my arm. And then it was just, saw all this blood. And then I basically passed out.
Oh, mate.
And then, had to go and get it taken by a professional.
I have a nurse in the house, so it was easier for me.
But, I mean, sort of just one thing that, again, I can't remember which guest it was, but they made a really interesting comment that once you start getting testosterone replacement therapy, then your body is unable to produce it naturally. So it is sort of very much a last resort that, if you do go on replacement therapy, then you're pretty much on it for life.
Yeah. I guess it's your body realises it doesn't need to anymore, and so it gets a bit lazy almost.
Oh, that's quite scary. So the best way to do it is naturally, is by getting your ass down the gym and pushing weights, basically. And eating well. Interesting.
Eating well, sleeping well, living well.
Yeah, and I think you said it's all circular, whatever it is, and you get all your ducks in line. I guess it just
you shouldn't have any problems.
Yeah. Easier said than done, though.
I was going to say, it's so simple.
Right? That's all it was. 100, right?
Yeah, if that's all it was, we wouldn't have a podcast, quite frankly.
Yeah, it is hard. Motivation is I don't know about you guys, but I think it's strange because some of my mates are so motivated when it comes to eating healthy. They just don't eat anything bad for them, and it just seems to come quite naturally. And then I'm the sort of person that I know there's biscuits in that cupboard now, and I've thought about them 3 times since we started recording, type thing. It's but motivation is something I just struggle with all the time.
I think I've quoted this on the podcast before, but I work in sales. I read quite a lot of sales books. Volker, you work in sales as well, is that right? Yeah. You presume you're well aware of Jeffrey Gitomer?
Not.
No? Okay. Author of the Sales Bible. Have a read of his stuff or listen to his podcast. They're brilliant. Right. But one of my favourite quotes from him is you already know what you need to do. You're just not doing it. And it's something that's transferable on so many things, and certainly within sales. I know if the numbers are not great, I need to be calling more prospects and sort of, booking more meetings and so forth. And it's the same within sort of diet and exercise. I know I need to eat less crap food, less processed food, and I need to exercise more. But still, there's always that little thing that just stops you just doing it sometimes. And it's just, I know I need to do this, but
Well, it's life though, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what gets in the way, and sort of, again, we talk about the circular thing and about, but when you're tired, and that's when I'll be eating crap, because it is almost, you go for the easiest thing. And, it's like, I could put a chicken breast under the grill and make myself a nice salad, or, I could just get something from the co-op, like packaged sandwich. And it's sort of, as you say, sort of, if you can get into the good habit, then, it's fine. But it's sort of getting into those habits and, And as I say, life just always gets in the way. It's great to say, all right, well, on Sunday, I'm going to prepare all my meals. But then, your family have other ideas about what you're doing on the Sunday.
Yeah, that's great when you're in your early 20s, you've got no kids and your weekends are actually your weekends. But yeah, you're right. And that's the problem, I think, when you get to sort of our age. I'm 41, Mark's approaching 41. I don't know about you guys, but when you got your family and you got your work, and work just seems to consume so much of the time, and then your family consumes so much more. And then, to be quite honest, when you're not doing that, me and Mark have to record a podcast. Thanks, Mark. And then, but by the time you've done all this stuff, sod screwing, sitting there prepping meals for 7 days, absolutely done.
It's that time, right? I mean, to be honest, what we're trying to do as a family now, plan our meals, like a week in advance. So A, we don't have to go shopping 3 times a week, or what do we fancy tonight, right? Yeah. And B, you plan a little bit healthier meals. And with me working from home most of the time now, I can take over some of the cooking duties, which, quite frankly, I only learned.
Such a modern man.
I know. I'm slowly learning how to cook. I'm quite impressed. I can do rice now and I can do chicken, right?
Really?
Basic stuff. I never did noodles and pasta, right, before. So I'm getting better. But it's also setting example for the kids, right? That, there's a proper cooked meal. It's not just some shit or, frozen pizza or, McDonald's every other day. Not that was ever the case, by the way, for anyone listening. But yeah, to David's point, right? If you're tired, right, you're hungover, right? You just eat crap all day long, right? And you just stuff your face. Or even I find when I'm working, right, and I need a boost, a bit of chocolate after lunch doesn't harm, right? And then before you know it, the chocolate is gone, just because that energy, you just need that sugar kick, and it's
But then there's sugar low as well, don't you? You have a sugar crash, and then you find yourself craving more, and then again that vicious cycle just goes in the opposite direction.
I remember that was years ago, and I think it was about £1.50 for 4 Snickers bars or something like that. So I bought them, and I'm like, they last me a week, right? They lasted me one afternoon. Because once I get going, as long as I know it's there, so the best thing is not to buy it at all, right?
Yeah.
Easily went through 4 Snickers bars.
One thing I've learned is don't go shopping when you're hungry. If you go shopping when you're hungry, that's it. You just pile all sorts of shit in there. So if you just go after you've had your dinner or something like that, then you seem to be a bit more measured in what you're buying. And
yeah, I agree with that. We're away at the moment on holiday. If you're watching, you'll probably see behind me. But if you're listening, we went away. So I was starving when I went and did the weekly shop. No kids. Left the wife and the kids here, went and did a weekly shop. And not only are you hungry, but you're also in holiday mode. And it was £150 of mainly crap. But what I've noticed is that those little Snickers bars that come in the multi-packs are all gone. But the berries that I bought in some vain hope to keep healthy are still fully packaged up in the fridge.
Yeah, starting to go a bit furry now, aren't they?
Yeah, I need to, but me and my wife were saying after 4 days now of eating shit, driving back to come and do this podcast today, I said to her, I'm absolutely shattered. And it's like, well, yeah, because we've been eating nothing but crap for 4 days, maybe the occasional healthy meal that we'll cook, but generally speaking, eating all the snacks and the rubbish. So yeah, it's, I think it's recognizing that as well, isn't it? Recognizing that the decisions you make will affect you, how you feel and stuff as well. So we need to get on it tomorrow.
Yeah, you raise a really interesting point about when you're in your 20s, and again, sort of when I said about, well, you cut out cheese and mayo, but it's like when you don't have a family, you're like, right, well, I'm just not going to buy any of the stuff that's my Achilles heel. Yeah. But then when you got the school lunches and stuff, it's like there's always crisps and chocolate bars there, so. And I mean, again, sort of going back to the sleep, I find that if I eat chocolate too late, like past sort of 8 o'clock, then I'm awake, like I can't get to sleep. And then the next day I'm tired. And then, my food choices are even worse.
Is that because there's a caffeine in the chocolate?
I guess so. Yeah.
Caffeine I think sugar, isn't it?
I've got a real caffeine sensitivity, and generally I can't, like after 12 o'clock, like lunchtime, no caffeine for me.
Yeah, and I've taken that on now as well. So I'm back on sort of the Cambridge weight plan, which is how I lost my weight in the first place.
Right.
And I can't drink anything other than water, green tea or black coffee. So I've become a real coffee snob in the last sort of 12, 18 months. And so I'm now buying like the poshest brands of coffee, and and I'm getting like ground decaf now, and that's my drink after about 1 o'clock. I can't have a caffeinated coffee, unfortunately.
I completely went decaf a few years ago. I have to say, decaf came a long way. It's actually not that bad.
Yeah,
I agree. We're the same. I very rarely will have a caffeinated coffee now. I'm quite happy with decaf. Don't taste any difference, to be quite honest.
Yeah. And the good thing is you can drink it all day long. So if you fancy coffee at 6 o'clock at night, you just have it, right?
Yeah,
flavored
absolutely.
water, everyone is saying, right? But that's fine.
Yeah. So sparkling waters and black coffee have kind of been my beer for the past sort of 18 months. And again, I went really snobbish on the sparkling water as well. And it's San Pellegrino all the way for me now. Served in the glass bottles to make it look classier. So,
but I mean, again, you've kind of touched on a good point there. That when you, like with alcohol, and I've sort of had long breaks from alcohol, and you do have to find something that is a bit of a treat, and it's almost like you can, and like alcohol-free beers are a lot better now than when, well, certainly over the last few years. But you kind of, I'd go through phases of like, I've not got any alcohol-free beers in the fridge, so I'll just go up to the shop and get some proper beers. And it's like, oh right, whereas when you've got some sort of treat drinks, that whether that is San Pellegrino or like lemon San Pellegrino is my favorite.
That is a bit good.
But yeah, whether it's alcohol or food you're trying to cut out, you can't do it on willpower alone. You've got to kind of put those tools in place to, like, and whether that is kind of like almost, well, Volker can talk about mindfulness, but checking that thought process, taking yourself off autopilot. And and it's the same as like going into a shop. As I say, it's like once you get into the habit of like, oh, I'll get myself a sneaky sandwich while I'm here, especially when they're reduced. But again, that's kind of like
my as well.
I'm quids in here. So I'll get all three.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I would disagree on the willpower. So I've been off, and you don't know that, David. I don't think I've been off red wine now for almost 2 months. Like, red wine was my poison. So easily, if my wife wasn't drinking with me, I'd easily finish the bottle. If not, we had to open 2 in the evening, right? Not finishing 2. I said just opening 2, just making sure. Yeah,
fair enough.
But I stopped that because it became too much of a habit as well. Once I don't think I had a problem with red wine. I had no problem without red wine, but no, joking apart. I mean, I hardly drink, beer, alcohol. It's all alcohol-free beer in my fridge. So the kids, if I say the kids, the oldest always complains. He goes like, "Oh, you don't even have beer in the house." I don't drink it. I left a Guinness Zero, right? I mean,
they're good, aren't they? Yeah, I've had a few of them, and there's a subtle difference, but barely noticeable. And there's been times there when I've been out and designated driver, and to sort of sit there and have a pint of Guinness. Yeah, well, the other lads having a Guinness it's a nice touch, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. And as David said, right, years ago it was Beck's Blue if you were lucky, right?
Yes, yeah, or Caliber. Was it Caliber? Oh.
Yeah.
Is it still going?
I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be.
No, but these days, and like the Heineken Zero's really good as well. Yeah, exactly. And so what I like is it's good just, again, if you just want to sort of meet for a pint midweek or something, that's kind of the way to do it, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah. Making me thirsty now. I don't think they've cracked the beer as the Guinness Zero. I agree, are perfect, but I don't think they've cracked the non-alcoholic beer quite yet. I still think it's
moving in the right direction. I think that's certainly the way to put it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely. My main gripe is when you go somewhere and you say, "Oh, what alcohol-free beers have you got?" "Oh yeah, we've got an alcohol-free beer." It's like, well, which one? "Oh, well, it's an alcohol-free beer." It's like, yeah, but which one? Because, and like Beck's Blue, I found that would, if I drank enough of those, that would just give me an awful headache. Yeah.
Well, that was a thing, and you often almost felt hungover after drinking it.
without the benefit, without the benefits, but without making a twat of yourself. Where's the fun in that?
Beck's Blue, definitely no go. It used to be the only thing we could have, right? There was nothing else.
Yeah. I'm sure my dad was in the RAF, and when he was out on detachment, if he was they're in dry countries, I know they'd get in alcohol-free beer and then find a way to ferment it, basically, and make it turn it alcoholic. And so, I probably shouldn't say too much. I might land him in a bit of trouble, but it was, something that they had to do when they were out on detachment, shall we say. Shall we move on to a new topic, Darren? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I was just going to actually, because one of the things that we know you guys have discussed is the sort of that age. And I was actually thinking when we were talking about food, like, fucking food shopping now is so expensive. I think my food shop this week was 150, 160. It's normally between 150 and 170 quid a week for a family of 4. Yeah. But the other thing is, I've just gone through quite a big change, as Mark knows. So a year ago, I was in a stable job and I'd been there for about 15 years. And as a 40 39-year-old at the time of leaving. I'd been there a while. I'd got sort of stuck in this job, pension trap, pay trap. So this is my first year as full-time self-employed. So that's what I was thinking of. But that's something you guys are covering in the podcast, isn't it? Because do you know what? It amazes me how many of my mates I speak to are fucking miserable in their jobs, but they're just stuck.
Golden handcuffs, isn't it?
Yeah. If I say talk to me, I coach people, right? So shameless plug here.
Yeah, go for it.
Go for it.
But no, it's not. No, but it is, right? So many people are miserable in their jobs. They don't want to do their job, or they have terrible bosses. They don't have the flexibility, whatever it is, right? And there's no reason why people can't go self-employed. So I don't know what you do, Darren. So fill us in. But I went self-employed in 2019, just in time for COVID. David has been self-employed forever, I think, right? Pretty much. A lot longer than me anyway. So what did you do then?
So I do mainly video and podcast marketing. So we produce marketing assets for corporates, I suppose, generally video. So one of the things I love to do, and this is really weird, is building YouTube channels.
Okay.
We've got a couple of clients we're working with at the moment. One of them in particular, like we've monetized the channel. He's getting loads of leads for it. It's a small channel, really, on the grand scheme of things, but it's growing rapidly. And I just really like delving into the analytics side of it, trying to figure out what's working, what's not. But yeah, so that's essentially what I do. But the transition, I was a police officer before.
Oh wow!
And I worked on like intelligence. I just had some really juicy jobs, good fun jobs. But fuck me, I hated it by the end. I don't miss it at all. Yeah, but so many. I know. I'll be honest with you. I think about 90% of police officers hate the job at the moment, in my opinion. And so many of my friends, sort of outside of that, are just wanting to leave. And what is it you actually do then, Volker? How do you support people through that process?
I wear lots of different hats. So I have a classic portfolio career. So as Mark already said, I work as a fractional sales consultant. So advise companies on go-to-market strategies. Do a lot of sales leadership coaching, executive coaching. So under executive coaching, I work with people that transition into portfolio careers, transition into mentoring, or mentoring people that transition into advisory roles and fractional roles. I'm also a therapist, so that's my B2C arm, if you like. So I'm wearing lots of different hats, but that's what I enjoy doing, right? And that's why I went self-employed. But I think that the challenge is a lot of men and women, of course, as well. When they get to midlife, it's like, why am I doing all this, right? What's the purpose in life, right? Which I guess where the midlife crisis, or transformation comes in, right? Where we evaluate life and go, is that how I want to spend the rest of my years, right? You probably don't have enough in your pension. I certainly don't. You're still paying off your mortgage. The kids are getting older. You might not spend enough time with your partner, or you're passing each other, right, like ships in the night kind of thing. And you go like, is that what life is about? I want to be alive. I want to feel alive. So to be honest, whether it's therapy or coaching, like I work a lot with middle-aged men that goes through that transition. And, if I say in therapy, it's usually looking at the past, right? In terms of, relationship with our dads, big thing for men, big thing, resolving those issues, and then looking forward, right? Where do I want to go? How is my life? How do I want my life to look like? And, and I think that's around about the age of 40, right? Where we start evaluating that. So I'm not surprised you're saying, you had that when you were 39. I certainly had it when I was 42 then. Yeah. So I'm 48 now, basically. So just think how old I was in 2019.
I had this thing called, it's the 9-somethings, where people make the biggest changes in their life. So 29, 39, 49. And it's the year that more people will run a marathon for the first time when they're in those 9-somethings, so to speak. And for me, in my year when I was 39, I quit my job and went self-employed, and I lost 4.5 stone. And it just made me realise, is that, have you ever heard of that phrase before?
The 9s? No, not really.
I heard it on another podcast somewhere, but I just thought it goes back to what you're saying. I think people get to that 9-something, you're just about to enter a new decade, and then you probably do take stock and start reflecting on things, don't you?
Yeah.
Would make sense.
What is it you do, Mark?
So I'm a sales agent first and foremost.
Right. Okay.
And so I've been a sales rep pretty much my whole career. And I think I'd seen a few friends go self-employed and sort of really get a bit more out of their work and everything. And I just kind of sat there and thought, well, I know I can do this on a self-employed level. And so I put together my grand business plan and went to my employer, said, look, can I become a sales agent, effectively carry on doing the same work, but just work for exclusively commission, and then maybe take on a couple other companies to sort of sell at the same time. And in my mind, it couldn't fail this. And so I went to my employer and said, I'm your top rep. I'd like to do this. Will you support me in it? And they said, no, we won't, unfortunately. Well, I tried to sort of see if we could sort of thrash out a deal, but then when it was realised that's not going to happen, I then sort of wrote to my biggest competitors, and the biggest competitor and the biggest company turned and come to me and said, yes, Mark, come and work with us. So, which then probably looked like a bit of a shithouse move, but I was then doing it for myself. And so, I've been doing that for the past, coming up to 2 years now. And haven't looked back. So,
I mean, I think the thing is, it isn't all roses when you're self-employed, but at the same time, us four wouldn't be sitting here if we weren't all self-employed. And I think, that's, it's that the old John Lennon cliche, it was easy for him to talk about not having money in possessions because, he was multi-millionaire. I think that we do just get driven this message that it is all about what's in your bank account that, that makes the difference rather than actually do it, and you do need a certain amount of money in the bank. But I think, there's a lot of people that would surprise themselves if they earned slightly less, but were doing more of the stuff that they love and, get joy out of.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
You don't get to the end of the week, right? And you go like, shit week, right? You get to the end of the week and go like, oh, I'm actually energized. I still have, something left in my battery to go into the weekend. That makes all the difference. David, we haven't talked about yourself yet, because you have been self-employed for a long time.
Be 15 years now. But I mean, I started off in journalism, like for which the Consumer Association. Then I was at the Financial Times, and it was when again, like when my daughter was born, and and it's like, well, it used to give me a bit of an ego boost. I work for the Financial Times, but then it was like, actually, a lot of my job would be, and again, it's like, oh, poor me, but, would be going out, being schmoozed by big financial companies and getting taken to Wembley. And I got to play at Wembley.
Nice.
So, like do lots of amazing things. But when my daughter was born, it's like, actually, I don't want to be out several nights a week. And then sort of transferred to, from the journalism side to the comms side for a local council. And then, my partner, she's in sales as well, but she always earned more than me. And, and it was like, well, I could continue working and I'll just about cover nursery fees, or actually I could look after my daughter. And I guess, I always wanted to have a very hands-on relationship with my kids. And I guess I sort of, I look at friends and think, well, actually, my career could be there. So I just did an Elon Musk move there. But the end of this story is that I transitioned into marketing. Again, sort of like quite like the analytical side and what is it about, a certain post or a certain blog or a certain bit of video content that seems to work for that person. And, you try and transfer it to someone else. It's like, why is it not working for them? But sort of problem solving and doing sort of more of this and it's like, well, obviously, unless you guys have sneaked a check in the post, it's like, I know that I'm not getting paid for this, but I can sort of see how it brings me joy, and a couple of years down the line, this might lead to income generation, but it is that thing of, well, at least I get to try it rather than sort of like, oh, well, having to do it like 7 o'clock at night after like a tiring day.
I think what you were touching on there, like influence is so powerful. And me and Mark have highlighted the problems with that within the health and fitness industry. So like we had a guest on called Judith, who is, I don't want to be rude here, she's a bit older than us. But
mine and Volker's age. Is that what you're saying?
No, a bit older. But she's dedicated like 30 years of her life, so 3 decades, to really educating herself. And honestly, she's like the encyclopedia when it comes to anything health and fitness related. She's fantastic. And she came on to the podcast, said a few things, and we had some fitness influencers, didn't we, Mark, from TikTok, being like, no, that's bullshit. And you're just like, when I told her, she was horrified. She started sending me like research journals,
all these reports and everything,
these reports and stuff. But it kind of made us realize that actually one of the biggest problems in the fitness and the health and fitness industry is that it doesn't matter how much you can know next to nothing. But if you've got a big following, it's quite powerful. But I've also seen professionally how people can use that influence for some really good things as well. And I think you're right. I think once you get there, it definitely opens up a lot of doors, should we say, to financial. But unfortunately, I think a lot of it in the fitness space is poor.
It's true for any space, isn't it? Really, it's not only fitness space, right? I mean, if you have influence, you can come up with all kinds of shit.
Yeah, you can be president of the United States.
Yeah, I was about to say, right? If you own a big social network, have lots of money, and a friend in politics, right? You can do all kinds of shit.
The world is your oyster.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's
politics. Yeah.
Well, here we go. But it's sort of like hearing some of the stuff coming out of the mouths of our politicians from basically the social accounts of American politicians, like going, oh, but they've said this, and it's like, well, that's that's just utter bullshit,
basically.
I don't understand how he gets, like, as in Trump, how he gets anything done. Because I was listening to, he had a medical examination the other day, didn't he? And then I was listening to him talk about, I had this extra examination and this, and I passed it. No one's ever done it. And then in the next sentence, he literally said, I got the highest mark ever. And I thought to myself, well, yeah, if no one's ever done it and you're the first one, of course you've had the highest mark ever. But technically speaking, you also scored the lowest ever as well. But it's like a full-time job for him, surely, talking himself up. I don't know how he gets actually anything else done. It's crazy.
I don't think he does, to be honest.
He don't. He's got a team of people behind him, obviously, but he just
signs the documents, and
don't get me started. I mean, there's this whole trade war over the last few weeks. What's the point? I'm a big globalization person, right? Everyone should play nicely together. Brexit was, I think, a shit piece of British politics, right?
I agree, Volker. Actually,
and annexing Canada and Greenland, right? I mean, come on.
He just says stuff for effect, doesn't he? None of that's happening, I don't think. But
I'm glad that we're bad mouthing him on your podcast and not ours. So we'll be coming for you.
Yeah. Do you know what? I hope he does, because that will help us grow big time.
Yeah, I sparks a lot of outrage here.
Yeah, but in all honesty, actually, Mark, this is something I was going to talk to you about, because you're right, Volker. With all this, with this tariffs, right?
Yeah.
The natural response is we need a trade deal. And one of the things that actually worries me quite a lot is the lowering of food standards, because you're right, in the EU, we had really high food standards. And, even with that, people like myself, Mark, have really struggled with our weight. And that's when it's highly regulated in comparison to the United States. If we open that up, for the sake of a trade deal, I think that's going to be
chicken coming our way.
Well, I was looking at the stats the other year. Like, so many people in the EU get salmonella. It's quite a small. It's like less than 5% or something like that, compared to something like 20% in the United States. Don't quote me on those figures, but it's that significant a change, and that's why they chlorinate. They wash it in chlorine, don't they? All of their chicken, rather than having better practices. I really hope that we don't just go for that golden trade deal and reduce all our food standards. And when you look at, like, my kids love Skittles, unfortunately. I hate Skittles. But
they're the worst in terms of sugar and chemicals.
They're bad here, but compare the British or European ones to the American ones, and it's 10 times worse. And there's things in there that are linked to things like autism and ADHD, and it's quite scary, to be honest.
Ultra processed food, eh?
Yeah. Bad enough as it is. We don't want it worse.
No.
Yeah, it's scary. And I think what worries me, whilst we're on the topic, is really the power and influence they have, right? Everyone's sucking up to him. So whether it's Zuckerberg, Bezos, Musk, and they control all the social media. So if they decide tomorrow, to your point of influence, right, decide, I don't know, whatever they want to decide, right? That we all drive on the left-hand side of the road. That's what they're going to put out, right? And everyone is being true.
It's even the fact that, that Facebook immediately sort of said, "Oh, right, well, we're not going to, invest in much in fact checking." It's
DEI, the whole diversity and inclusion stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if Adolf, and as a German, I can say that, right, had that amount of propaganda, he was still throwing leaflets out of a plane, right? If he had that power, but that's the power they have, and that's really scary if they use it in the wrong way.
I mean, I was just come back from Amsterdam for a family holiday.
Holiday. You got family out there?
But I mean, we did a waffle making course, and there were some Americans there, and the first thing they said was, "We didn't vote for Trump," and I was like, "Wow," But they are sort of straight off the bat saying it. Completely forgotten. Oh, I know what it was, but yeah. So we didn't go to Anne Frank's house, but the amount of Americans there, and you're like, how many of you have just voted for someone that? I mean, I sort of, while I got a double F in science, I got all A's in history, and it is scary, like, almost like every little incident, whether that was the January the 6th riots, but going back to Brexit, there's all these little markers that you're like, oh, actually, I can relate this to the build up to the Second World War or the build up to the First World War. And, and it's, I don't know, we don't learn from our mistakes in history. Well, same as weight loss. We never learn. Just bring it back round.
I liked how you brought it back round there. No, I appreciate that, David. I was thinking we're kind of going on a bit of a tangent here, as good as it is. I wanted to sort of change it, actually, and you mentioned it briefly earlier, that the midlife crisis. Is it a thing? What is your experience, and what have you discussed on your podcast about the midlife crisis?
You want me to start, David?
Yeah, go on.
So, midlife crisis. So, I think it was our first podcast we talked about that. Most likely was our first podcast. And we have talked about it obviously ever since. So I think it is what we said earlier. It's a reorientation, right, in midlife, where you get to halfway your life. And if you think about it, we all live longer, right? So I'm hoping to hit 100, right? My granddad wanted to hit 100. I reckon my dad will. And, I just assume I do, which I think might not be the truth because there are more diseases coming and stuff, but that maybe is on a different sheet. But I think it's almost midlife becomes later and later in life, right? But we're getting to a point around about 40 where we evaluate life because we're thinking it is midlife. And is it a crisis? I think for some people it can be a crisis because they might go and, like I know people that go like, always want to have family and I still haven't found the right partner. They might find, fall into a big hole. I always want to have a sports car. I got the sports car, I had it for a year, then sold it off again because 5-liter engines and cost of living crisis. It's not great, right? So, but it's a logical and an emotional decision at the same time. So I think I like the word crisis because everyone knows what it is, right? But is it really a crisis? I don't think it's a crisis. It's a reevaluation of your life. And I like the analogies that you say every 10 years, right? Every 9s you go and look back, right? And we regularly review our lives. But I think as you get to 40, and I assume, and I tell you in 2 years' time, once you get to 50, it gets even worse because 50 is probably the tipping point if we assume we live to 100, right? Because then the years you have left are getting less. And of course, we don't know. And, God forbid, I get run over by a bus tomorrow. Life might be over tomorrow. But hopefully not. So we assume we have this linear line up to 100 and we're healthy and everything else. But we might not. And once you get to this age, you start thinking about it. What Darren said earlier as well. Pension. Do I have enough in my pension pot? Do I do what I enjoy doing? Do I want to do what I'm doing for the next 40 years, 50 years? Do I live the life I want to be living? Which is my tagline on coaching, right? And that therapy to that extent as well. And you get to this, I think that's why I get a lot of middle-aged men in therapy as well, because they go like, I have all this shit and this baggage I carry around. It's time to solve that. If not only for me, but also for the next generation. I don't want to pass it on to my kids because our kids will be teenagers, slightly younger actually, because we're getting kids later and later. I think David and I were just early with our kids, right? Must be the high testosterone level. David, what do you think? Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for so many of us, you react in the moment, whether that's, choosing to go for a certain job or, not choosing to go for a certain job because, it's like, well, yeah, you sort of react to the circumstances, and depending on what those circumstances are, you're suddenly like, actually, I thought I was going down that path, try and keep my hands, but I've actually, what started off as, a 1 degree deviation ends up like being a major split. And I think, yeah, you just get to a point. And, and I think, and again, the catalyst for the podcast was the pandemic, and I think that gave us all a lot of time to reflect. And, well, I think it was that sudden realization that we have absolutely no control over, over anything. And, we like to think that we can control things. And, it's that thing of like, oh, well, I'm more secure because I'm in a job, I'm fully employed. And it's like, well, actually, you don't know when you're going to lose your job. And, you've got no, I don't know if you've got more control being self-employed or not. But I guess, yeah, you get to a certain point in life and your priorities change because you build your life around your children, I guess, whether that is kind of staying in that job or where you live, and then when they start to get older, and and it's like going to university at 18, it's like, god, my daughter's only like a couple of years away from this big transition, and it's like, all right. And I see my children less and less as they get older because they're out with their friends, and other than needing a lift, they don't really want to spend time with you. And yeah, I guess it is just all these. Well, one of our guests kind of said it's a clusterfuck of circumstances. And as I say, you throw in parents getting old or ill or dying, or, and if that's not happening to you directly, you'll have friends that are in that situation, have friends that have passed away. I've lost a couple of close friends over the last few years. And I guess you kind of get to that point where you realize you've got so little control over life. So you're like, well, actually, maybe I need to start taking control. But yeah, we're still trying to work out exactly what midlife crisis is, or whether it is midlife crisis or midlife opportunity.
I'm definitely in the opportunity camp, but what you said in terms of income, just because I say that to so many people I work with, once you get into portfolio career, right? If you lose your job, you lose one of them, right? You don't lose 100% of your income, right? You just lose one job. So if you can balance it, I think self-employment is much more secure in terms of a job if you split it between different income sources. So sorry, just had to bring that in because
I agree on that. And when I first went self-employed and sort of signed up with an accountant, and he kind of said that you're just as secure in self-employment as you are in employment. You do a crap job in employment, you're losing your job anyway. What's the difference?
Well, you can do a great job in employment and still
get sacked. Yeah.
And then 100% of your income is gone, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Absolutely, and that's so true.
I really like the way you've sort of described it as well, because I suppose it makes a lot of sense. It's not really a crisis, is it? It's just you sitting back saying, well, I'm approximately halfway through where I think I might be in life, and how are things going, and what do I want to change? And and I suppose it does make a lot of sense. If you're going to go out and buy that sports car you've always wanted, then I suppose you feel like you might be running out of time, or now I want to do. I've justified a lot of what I've done. I won't get a chance to do it if I don't do it now. Is one. So leaving a job, and actually I'm at the age where I feel like I should do that. So I bought myself an Audi A6. Always wanted one. Quite happy with it. Don't regret doing it so much. But it was almost like, well, actually, do you know what? I'm 40 now. Why can't I do it? Like, we've got the money to do it. Yeah, and it is an evaluation, isn't it? It's quite a good. I love the way you summed it up.
I think also, you've like, whether you're employed, especially when you're, I say unemployed, when you're self-employed, you don't get many kind of like performance evaluations or pats on the back. So, you got to give yourself pats on the back, and, and I guess that is probably another thing that men don't, you do get some people that are I don't know, arrogant maybe, but I don't think, and it's something me and Volker have talked about, in that we'll finish a season of the podcast and we're straight on to the next one rather than going, wow, we've cracked out another season, what a great effort. And, I think it's, and say that, especially with friends you've grown up with, you don't necessarily say, oh, well done on, your career. It's, yeah.
I think men are bad for things like that, aren't we? We don't pat ourselves on the back very often. A lot of men, I don't think. I never do. I'm never one to see what's gone well in something. I always look for what could go better.
Yeah.
Like glass half empty sort of mentality in terms of work. Like family wise, personal life, I'm actually really happy, to be honest. Like I think everything there is perfect. But in terms of work, I always want more. I'll never content. It's really strange. I think
I kind of naturally play down my own achievements and that. And I know, just going back to the whole self-employment thing, I just remember like the day that I quit my steady, comfortable sales job. And I remember talking to a mate and I said, yeah, well, I think most people would have done that, and wouldn't they? And one of my good mates go, come back. No, mate, the balls that you showed to do that when you had everything to lose, really, and you still took that decision. And I said, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And I just, again, and when I reflect on it, it was a fucking huge decision. Again, I've got 3 kids of my own and 2 step kids. So I've got 5 kids I'm supporting. I mean, it's, I said, I should never have even been thinking of doing that. And it was one person said to me, but fair play, you've done it and you've made a success of it. And yeah, for me, it was just like, it's just kind of a shrug of the shoulders, but it was far bigger than.
I mean, I'm not one for sort of, empowering memes or anything like that, but there's one that has always stuck with me since I saw it, and it is something along the lines of, while you're busy doubting yourself, there's somebody else that's totally in awe of you, and I'm like, yeah, and it is that thing of you can tell yourself, I didn't do that as well as I think I could have done, or that could have been a lot better, but to most people, they don't see the decision making, and they don't see that you're like, well, actually I had to rush that bit, or I think we can get sort of bogged down in our own processes rather than celebrating the finished result.
Man down, where can people find you?
I was about to say, let's continue the conversation when you guys come to our podcast. So I think we already have that in the diary. So looking forward to it. In terms of Men Up, Men Down, we are everywhere you can listen to your podcast. I don't know, that's probably crap English, but I get away with it. I'm German. You know what I'm trying to say.
It's everywhere.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. We have a website, www.menupdown.com. And David knows all the social media stuff.
Well, we're on all the social. No, well, we're not on TikTok. We're on social media. Yeah,
you find us on Instagram, Facebook. I think we're on TikTok. I don't know if we're on TikTok. Darren, maybe we should talk about. We have a YouTube channel as well. So youtube.com/@menupmendown. I think it is. So we ventured into video this year, and
Right, yeah, brilliant. Well, what we'll do is we'll put the links for some of that on the show notes, and then people can just click through. So if you, we highly recommend. Both me and Mark have listened, and think it's brilliant. So yeah, go and have a listen, and thanks for coming on, guys. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for inviting us on, and well done for everything you're doing. Yeah, keep up the good work.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.